All right, so this is where we left off last time, where when we created our tabs, we have some tabs, we have some buttons, we have some menus. Let's take a look at how we can actually select specific geometry within our scene, and it'll detect whether or not you have an object selected or if it's a polygon object. So I'm going to hold spacebar down and actually shift and right click and go to cube just to generate a cube in our scene off to the side here. Actually, let me dock that, and then I'll dock this guy over here. We don't really need this. All right, so here's our scene, here's our script, and I'm going to go ahead and do create NURBS primitive sphere, and then let's just go ahead and scale this up as well. Now, what we have for the most part is I'm going to actually just hit Control A and copy that. Well, let's make a new tab for a second, and we'll do a Python, and that way we have this here. And I'm just going to copy out in little bits of the line. So I want this where I'm importing the Maya commands. And then let's define a new Python function called select poly. And what we're looking to select is an object. And we do that by we can donate that with obj. Now let's make a variable called shape node. And it's equal to all the objects that are in our scene, and we're going to detect whether or not its shape is true. That means that it is an actual shape in the scene. So the way we do that is mc.list relatives, and then what we're looking for is an object in our scene, and we want to do shapes equals true. And I'm just going to do, we're going to be looking for a specific types of nodes. So we'll do a node type, and the type of node we're looking for is a shape node. And I'll show you what that means in a second. So I'm going to do the same thing as before, but instead of listing relatives, we're going to be looking for node type. And we're going to be looking for a shape node. So you might be wondering, well, what is a shape node? Well, should we look at a polygon object? We go up to, I believe it's display, and then we go to shape nodes. This holds all of the math that, let's see, object display. It holds all of the math that makes up what our sphere is or our cube. I believe we have to be actually in our hypergraph. So Windows, generators, hypergraph. And you can see here, these are our shape nodes. And if you don't see this, you go to options, display, and then you just turn on shape nodes, and that'll show you the shape nodes underneath. And this is what holds all of that data for these guys. And so what we're doing is we're looking for objects in our scene that have a specific node type, and that's ones that can hold a shape node. Now, all of these objects that have data have a shape node, and we're looking for a specific type. Now, this is not a mesh, right? This is a NURBS object. This is a mesh. So what we're going to say is if the node type is the same as mesh, we are going to return true. That means we're going to essentially say yes, we found it, and then if not, we return out of this method false. So we're leaving this method here as false if we did not find a mesh. So when we run this script, actually we might want to save this, but all right, let's add another method. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to go back a little bit, and I'm going to do define, and what this is going to do is going to check whether our selection is an actual object, mesh object. So let's make another variable called selected objects, and we'll make that equal to MC, and list, and we want to check if our selection is equal to true, and if what we're going to do is we're going to check if the length of our objects is less than 1. If so, that means we don't have anything selected and we want to get an error. Okay, so we want to output an error, I should say. We don't want an error, but we want to let the user know that the selected objects in our list is less than 1. That means they did not select an object. And if they did, there is a way of doing this through error checking. So mc.error, and we can output an error. And that's going to be, please select a model from our scene. This means they did not select anything. And let's just actually say a polygon mesh model. And hopefully you can see that okay. It's not too small. And let's go all the way back here and just tab in. There we go. So we know it's lined up. And we have, remember we have this, we're going to make a variable called last selected. And remember we have this selected objects here. And as we're clicking around, it's essentially, we can donate that we want the last element in the array. So last selected equals selected objects. And you want to think of these as every time you're selecting, it's sort of storing those objects as you go. Now let's create another, essentially another variable and just checking if it's a polygon object, right? So is polygon. And what we're going to do is in this is polygon object is we're going to check if the current selection, and that's this up here. Remember we created this method here which is current selection. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to check if the current selection is a polygon, is a polygonal object, right? So is the current selection a polygonal object? So let's make sure I spelled that right. Okay, and we want to do, remember we have our last selected. Now, so this is checking if the current selection is a polygon object. And it looks pretty good. All right, and let's run an if check. So if it is a polygon object, what we can do is we can just print out to the screen for now. I'm just going to steal this for a second. Congrats, you found a polygon. And then, so I hit Control S out of habit. Let's run this check selection method down here. And I'm going to hit Control A, Control C, because if I get an error or whatever, it's because this isn't saved, it's going to kick it out. So I notice I have this selected. I'm going to hit Control Enter, and I have a error. And that error is, let's bring this down to see where my error is. It says, current selection poly is not defined. And the reason for that is this name should be this, current selection polygonal. Because we're going to, all right, so let's do that one more time. Copy, Control Enter. There we go. It says, congrats, you found a polygon. See that? If I select this, and I run it, it says, global name return false. So it says, name return false, not defined. Where is that? Oh, there, you probably noticed that too. So let's Control Enter that. You can see, should be, so Control A, Control Enter. Let's see, is there a return that I am missing? Let's see if this runs. Please select a polygon mesh. So that's working. Yeah, so overall it's okay, but if I select this, yeah, actually that's true. It should return false here. You can see it is returning false because so let's run through this. If we have a polygon mesh selected, if node type mesh, we're going to return true. And where we're returning true is here, right? So we're calling this method here. This is polygon. If it is polygon, a polygon object, which we are checking throughout this method here, we return the congrats you found, right? So let's run that. You see, you found a polygon. And then if we don't have anything selected, we should say, please select a polygon mesh. So let's run this. Control Enter in here. Please select a polygon mesh, and it returned an error, and you can see that it turned red, and that's what this is for here. All right, so it's a good first pass on how to check whether or not the object you're selecting for your script, and we'll embed this into a window in future tutorials.